podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.
Welcome to the 1905 podcast. Each week, Joe and I bring you our unfiltered takes on the highs, the lows, and everything in between, following the Blues from Gate 13 of the Matthew Harding stand. Let's hit the notes.
Finals, which has gone. Hull City 0, Chelsea 4 in the FA Challenge Cup on a Friday night in a rain-soaked, snowy blizzard. The weather was horrendous and it looked bitterly cold, but Chelsea have really turned on the heater and put Hull to the sword tonight. I really enjoyed that performance. I thought that Chelsea were immaculate, really. There was a couple of moments right at the very death, and I'm talking in injury time, where they were just a little bit sloppy, but do you know what? That was a fantastic performance by Chelsea. Took a little while to get going in terms of scoring the goal, but I thought our all-round play was just really high, and the amount of chances we created before we scored was excellent. And you did wonder for a moment if it was going to be one of those nights where we would have a lot of chances, not take them, and Hull would go down the other end and get on the end of a set piece or something, and you find yourself 1-0 down, and that happens in the FA Cup a lot. But yeah, it was just a really good all-round performance from Chelsea, and I think they can be very pleased with their night's work. Let's go through the starting 11. See, Sanchez kept his place in goal. I mistakenly thought that Jorgensen would be fit for this game, but I realised he had an injury after I did my voice note last week. So he started in goal. Reece James, again, we thought Reece might be back. Wasn't sure if he'd start against Hull because it's a slightly weaker game, but he started at full-back. Mamadou Sarr got his debut. He did play 7 minutes in the Club World Cup for us, but really I'm classing that as his full debut tonight. We're making a start, and he was alongside Wes Fofana, and Hato made up the back four at left back. And I think, to be honest with you, I think Reece was excellent. He made one slight error in the first half where he could have kicked the ball out for a corner or certainly just got rid of the ball, but he held on to it far too long, and the whole winger sort of nipped him behind, and they made a slight cross, and it could have easily ended up in a goal for Hull, but we managed to ride our luck at that moment. But I thought Reece was really good tonight. He looked very comfortable. Obviously, as you'd imagine, against Hull City, he's obviously way above that level, but I just thought after a slight injury, his level of performance was superb, and I think he led the team really well. Alongside him, I say the two centre-halves, I think, were pretty flawless. I think Fofana had one of his better nights, one of his best games of the season, actually. I thought he was everywhere. He covered every blade of grass. He cleared it when he needed to. He played out from the back when he needed to. I just thought he had a very good all-round game, and Sarr alongside him looked really good. I mean, we can't really comment on Sarr just yet. I think it wasn't the hardest game he's ever going to play in terms of centre-forward play from Hull, but from what he had to do and what we've seen from some of the Chelsea centre-halves recently and this season and last season, he looked very in control, very smooth. He was a good passer of the ball. He won a lot of aerial duels. I liked him. I really enjoyed his performance. I think let's just hold fire and see what he's got. If he starts to play a few more games in the Premier League, I think that's where we'll need to see him show his true colours. But as a one-off debut, a starting debut, he can be very pleased with his night's work. I thought Hato had one of his best games. I think he's going to be class. I've just got a funny feeling with Hato that he's going to be a really good player for us. Just a sneaky suspicion that we have signed a real good one there. I enjoyed his ball carrying. He showed real confidence. He made a couple of fantastic tackles in the first half when Chelsea lost possession and he had to chase back and win the ball. And not only did he make a good tackle, he actually kept possession of the ball as well. And I think that in the second half, he kept driving forward. He actually drove the team forward a bit like Cucurella does, quite frankly. And again, level of opposition is slightly lower, but I thought that Hato had a really good performance and a really good night. Into the midfield, also we had Garnacho on the left, Neto on the right. We started with Caicedo and Andre Santos, Esteval and Delap up front. And I think it was a really good, strong team, and actually really pleased that we didn't muck around too much. Yes, you can argue that Delap hasn't started many games. You could argue that Garnacho's sort of been a bit in and out of late, but that was really a fairly good, strong team. I don't think there was anyone real weak players in there. So I think we can be pleased with that. And like we've said before, can we go a couple of goals up and actually then bring these players off? And obviously we saw some debuts for Jesse Derry, whose hairline looks a bit like a poor man's Zach Morris from Saved by the Bell. He came on and actually thought he had a decent game. His first touch was basically a raking pass round the back for, I think it was Garnacho to chase onto, and we didn't quite manage the cross, but it was a fantastic pass. And he had some really nice touches on the left-hand side when he came on. And Shimuweka, again, made I think it's his 8th or 9th Chelsea appearance tonight. He came on for only 5 minutes at the end. He didn't get a lot of the ball, but again, nice to see him. And yeah, the fact that we can be goals up and bring players on is the way to do it, in my opinion. Starting with a very weak side and hoping for the best, and then finding yourself 1-0 down and chasing a game, I don't think is ideal. And I think Liam Rosenior is really growing on people, and I think he will only make his stock rise with team selections and performances like that. I think the style of play from Chelsea has been incredible, really, from what we saw on Enzo Maresca, which was this dry, drab, backwards and sideways football, to what we saw tonight, which was Chelsea basically on the front foot the entire time, pressing and hurrying and giving Hull no time whatsoever. The speed of play as well, I think that's the main thing. It's how fast we're moving the ball now. There's not too many moments in the match where you're just seeing aimless passes going from centre-back to centre-back and back to the goalkeeper. You're seeing really high-pressured, high-octane football, Chelsea looking to attack at every opportunity. And I think that was a really good... And again, it's Hull City, it's not a Premier League side, but we've really given Hull a massive going over tonight. And I think that just watching the game, I was like, I'm actually excited. I'm really invested in this. It made me sit on the edge of the seat and actually go, do you know what we're going to do next? And very impressed with Liam Rosenior and the way we played tonight. That was a really good performance. Let's just go through some of the moments in the game very quickly and some of the goals, etc. There was a really good early chance for Neto, which he didn't take. And you're sort of going, oh, come on, mate, just put that away and make the game easy for us. But his shot flew quite a way over the bar. And then we saw Caicedo, an absolute defence-splitting pass from right to left into Garnacho's feet, who you're thinking, come on then, just go and bag that for 1-0. He dribbled forward and smashed it straight at the goalkeeper. It came back to Neto again, and he got his feet all in the muddle, and he couldn't tap in for the opener either. And you're going, cool, there's 3 chances missed already. I've mentioned the Reece James incident where he kind of got himself in a bit of a tangle, but luckily for him, the whole centre forward couldn't quite capitalise on the cross, and we got away with one there. But really, that was about the only chance that Hull really had in the whole first half, so I think we could be pretty pleased with how we defended. They had a fantastic pass from Hato when he plays that ball over the top for Esteval, and again, a fantastic run from right to left. He picks up the ball in that central area, goes around the goalkeeper, and you're just thinking, just roll that in the net. And no, he smashed it again way over the bar, which you couldn't believe. You literally would have put your house on him scoring there, but yeah, somehow it still stayed 0-0. And then the real chance of the half, really, Liam Delap chases down the goalkeeper. You're thinking he's done well there. Gets the ricochet. It comes back off the crossbar and goes down. And you're thinking, did that cross the line? And I think to the naked eye, originally, I thought that hasn't. Liam Delap seemed to think that he did. He then somehow ambles towards the ball, which is kind of just bouncing around in the 6-yard box. And instead of putting the ball in the net, he's gesturing to the referee as if to say, that's in. The referee says, well, no, it's not. Carry on. And then in all that time, he lets the goalkeeper get back and make a save. And you're just going, mate, this is just so poor, so poor. And I'll be honest with you, I was really disappointed with Delap in that first half. The ball bounced off him a lot. He wasn't getting any joy. Again, that chance that he half created for himself by chasing down the goalkeeper. But the second thing is you have to score. Put the ball in the net and then find out it went over the line later. Like, it's just a ridiculous decision from him. And yeah, that really got on my nerves. But yeah, it stayed 0-0 once again. You just couldn't believe that we couldn't get our breakthrough. But not long after that happened, Delap actually finds himself in a bit of space and into the box, and he rolls the ball back for Neto to fire the opening goal into the bottom right-hand corner as you look at the goal, and it was a beautiful strike. He really cuts across the ball with his left foot and sweeps the ball into the bottom corner, and it was a really good goal from Neto and a really pure strike, and I love that from him. And Chelsea more than deservedly went into the half 1-0 up. And I think for me, what was really noticeable was that second half. We came out like a house on fire. We were everywhere. And it was just like, we've not really seen this from Chelsea. We used to slow build-up play. We're used to coming out in the second half and being like, taking 10 to 15 minutes to get going. This was Chelsea straight out the blocks, going at Hull, giving them no time, no peace. And after forcing a corner, the in-swinging corner on the right-hand side, Neto keeps swinging the ball in, and he did this 3 or 4 times in the second half, right on the front post. The very first one he did, it literally misses everybody and goes all the way in, and Neto somehow scores from a corner. And it was more than Chelsea deserved to be 2-0 up at that stage, but not quite from how you would have expected the goal to have come. But nonetheless, we took it, and Chelsea had their 2-goal lead. Then really came sort of Delap's moments really in the game. He hadn't played great up until that point, but he made a couple of these really lovely, bendy, arcing runs in front of the centre-backs, and he got his just rewards by taking the ball into the 6-yard box, and you're thinking he's just going to slide this one in, but he looks up, sees Esteval running in, and he just lays it back for him, and Esteval smashes in for 3-0. And it was like, oh, Chelsea are actually going for this. We're actually going for goals. We're not sitting back on a 1-0 or a 2-0. We are going for this. And I'm really pleased to see this. And that was a lovely bit of play from Liam Delap, and he can be pleased with another assist there. You are hoping at some point he's going to start taking some of these chances he's getting, but you can't criticise him for, yet another assist. And there was yet more good hold-up play from Liam Delap, getting his third assist by just holding the ball up, bouncing the ball off for Pedro Neto to coolly finish into the bottom left-hand corner past the goalkeeper. And Chelsea have gone from 1-0 to 4-0 in a very short space of time. And in between, there were chances as well. And it was just clinical from Chelsea. It's not often I've said that this season about them. They were hungry for goals. They were hungry for chances. They didn't give Hull any time on the ball. I thought the defenders pressed really well. The midfield players pressed really well. And that constant pressure on the whole team, basically, not on certain players, but on the whole team, just meant they couldn't get out. And when they did decide to go long, it was just going straight through to Sanchez. And we were just starting again from the back. And it was just a really good all-round, classy performance from Chelsea. And just as a bit of fun, I just thought it was a real night of lookalikes. I thought the referee looked like Liam Rosenior. I thought he was reffing the game at one point. And has anybody noticed that Hato looks like David Hay, the British heavyweight boxer? And basically, that's all I can see now. He's David Hay playing left back for us. But on a slightly serious note, I think that Chelsea have given an absolutely superb account of themselves tonight. They've gone to a difficult place, a really cold evening, a greasy pitch, snow coming down, rain coming down. These are the sort of games that can be very, very uneasy for away teams in the Premier League, and I think we've dealt with it so well. They can be very proud of their performance. I think Liam Rosenior was pushing, say, Jesse Derry and Shibby Waker to the front to get their plaudits from the crowd tonight. I think he was really pleased with what he saw. I think he was probably quite disappointed that Chelsea weren't winning by 2 or 3 in the first half, but he can be really proud of how his team are performing for him. And yes, Liam Rosenior is not a household name. He's not a manager that we probably all were thinking this is the right way to go, but he has galvanised his team. They do look different. They are playing well. They have a certain style of play where it is a bit up and at 'em, and it's exciting and it's fun. And do you know what? I'm really enjoying the ride at the moment. I don't want to see constant slow build-up play and the goalkeeper having 6,000 touches when 2 will do. I think that what he's managed to do in a very short space of time, and bear in mind he's had no pre-season, he's literally had to come in where we've had the most games probably anybody played in January. Man City might have had a similar amount of games. I think we played 9 or 10 games in January. And you can imagine then there's hardly any time on the training field to get across your messages. So what he's done in a very short space of time, I think, has been very impressive. And just going back to that Arsenal game in midweek where we had a game plan to try and stifle Arsenal and then hit them on the counter-attack maybe with 30 or 40 minutes to go. I still, to this day, I don't blame him for that. And I don't blame him for maybe being a little bit cautious. But by staying in the game, it at least gave us hope until the last minute where we could actually maybe get a draw or actually win the match. So I think that he's playing a very good game. I think he's enjoying managing this team. He looks very proud to manage his team. And all the things he's been saying in the press before games and after games, I think has been very impressive. And I don't think any of us could have imagined that we've gone from a team that was playing slow, sluggish, sideways and backwards crab football to suddenly this high-pressured, in-your-face, all the wingers going at their defenders, all the strikers looking to get their fellow attacking midfield players into the game. And we've done all this tonight without Cole Palmer and one or two other players as well. So I think we can be very, very pleased with a strong Chelsea performance tonight. We haven't given Hull a minute's peace. And even though Hull had one or two tiny moments right at the end where they hit the post, I think we can all agree that that's probably the most complete 90 minutes of football we've played maybe this season. And people will say, well, it's only against Hull in the Championship, but trust me, these games in the past for not just Chelsea, but for all sorts of Premier League teams have been real banana skins. So I think that we can be very proud of the team tonight. Very, very happy that they've gone to Hull, done a really good job, played really well, given good value for money in terms of chances created, goals scored. And I'll be honest, I haven't got a bad word to say about it. So well done, Chelsea, and well done, Liam Rosenior.
One excellent summary of the game, Joe. I thought that was spot on. And yeah, the thing that comes to mind really last night is everything you've just said. Just enjoying the game and enjoying watching us play. And I think you absolutely rightly point out the fact that, yeah, people are going to say it's only Hull. But let's face it, we've seen Chelsea labour in games like this so many times in years gone by. And even this season, only got to look back at Lincoln away earlier in the season and what a torrid night that was, and just unbearable to watch at times, to know that, yeah, these games can go the other way. And do you know what? I looked at it and I've just had a quick look at the numbers because I've wanted to sort of give a little bit of insight. And Rosenior has had 11 games in charge of Chelsea now. Obviously, 8 wins, 2 defeats to Arsenal and a draw. But I just want to look at the numbers compared to Maresca and his last 11 games. And conceding goals is about the same. So that's still definitely an area for improvement, I'm sure. Like some of the goals that we've conceded as well, Rosenior will be furious about. But scoring goals has just gone the other way. I think we were 1.3 average in the last 11 under Maresca. And we've scored 28 in 11 games under Rosenior so far, 2.5 average a game. It's just been so different. And what I think you see is the players just look like they're enjoying it. You get the sound bites, which are all very positive. The body language of players, whether that's in little press conferences or little training clips that you see, are all really good. But really, that only tells you a part of the story, doesn't it? Because let's face it, when you're winning games, people always look pretty happy and it's easy. But I think the truth is what you see before your eyes on the pitch and the way that we're playing. And they just look like they're having fun and enjoying their football. And like you said, playing on the front foot, aggressive, and almost to a man now. You could go through pretty much the whole squad and say every one of them has had at least one game where they've looked really good and looked like they've got a bit of confidence about them again. And certainly I'm sort of thinking particularly the midfield and attackers, but then you throw in the fullbacks into that as well and think that everyone's had their moments, haven't they, in the team under Rosenior that is really positive. And I've said it, I sort of feel like a bit of a broken record, but I said it a lot when Maresca left about just being bored and football is meant to be an entertainment business, etc. We are now. Yeah, genuinely at the moment we are entertaining to watch and it is fun. And even in the games where let's face it, we've been frustrated, like Leeds, of course, but we weren't, it wasn't awful to watch. It wasn't. And even that Arsenal game away, where we talked about it, like you mentioned it there, Joe, we got a lot of stick for Rosenior for the way it's set up, but I liked it. I was enjoying it. I was enjoying the way that we were doing something, the performance, and I think that's massive. I think it's massive. Like you say, on terms of a couple of the players, again, Andre Santos, just doing what he does. He's just so key now, isn't he, to the way that we play under Rosenior, the way we're moving the ball so quickly. Just love him. Absolutely love him. And yeah, Pedro Neto, I don't want to add too much on what you said there, Joe, but I think it's worth calling out the fact that he does pick up a lot of heat from Chelsea fans, to the extent that Liam Rosenior was even asked about that in his post-match press conference and said, he's been getting some stick off fans online, and what do you think of that? And Rosenior's answer was like, that really surprises me, and honestly, I don't understand it, because not only is he, in his words, a world-class player, but what he does for the team in terms of work rate and effort and sacrifice. And I think sometimes that is overlooked far too much these days in a world of social media and data and numbers are everything, aren't they? Like, how many times do you see players compared with their goals and assist numbers? And I think the numbers were going around comparing Pedro Neto to Raheem Sterling, who obviously got a lot of stick in his time at Chelsea. But again, he was a very highly paid player, came with a huge reputation. I think they're a little bit different. But anyway, my point is, people are obsessed with the numbers. And of course, you're an attacking player, the numbers are very important. Again, Pedro Neto's numbers aren't looking too bad this season. It's worth saying. But there is other parts to his game. And I look at something like the game I mentioned more than any other, but PSG in the Club World Cup final. The work rate that he put in on that night, he didn't get any goals or assists, but he was absolutely essential to Chelsea locking down Hakimi, who was obviously by far one of PSG's biggest threats, and matched up with him with pace, worked so hard in front of Kukura, I think it was that day, and was just, that's the other side. I think with Pedro Neto, you get almost a guarantee that he's going to be that, I've called him like a bumblebee, a wasp, but whatever, a work rate effort. And the bit that had been missing in a period of about a month, so it wasn't a short period, was the quality. He had a couple of real stinking games, didn't he? Actually, the two that McFarlane was in charge of, with Man City away and Fulham away, I thought he was awful. But I think Rosenior's handled him well. He's brought him out of the team a little bit. In fact, let's face it, given his legs a little bit of a rest, because he's played so many minutes. And we said, we saw signs of it when he came on against Leeds and was putting those balls in the box and looked, he was really unlucky not to come away with a goal or assist that day. And then he did what he did against Hull. And it's just little steps in the right direction. And again, just well handled, I think, by Liam Rosenior. And I think he deserves his flowers, Pedro Neto. And personally, I think there are upgrades needed in the winger positions, and we'll certainly talk about that, in future podcasts. But I think if one of your four wingers is Pedro Neto, I don't think it's a bad option. I honestly don't. I think he's versatile enough and effective enough that he is one of your four and a good option to have. Yes, you want another Esteval type, don't you? A bit more electricity probably around him, but I don't think as one of the four he's bad in any way. And the talk of Chelsea maybe looking to sell him, my initial reaction to that was, no, I wouldn't. I'm not big on it. I think I'd still be keeping Pedro Neto around this squad. But yeah, a really good night for Chelsea. Like the fact that Cole Palmer and João Pedro haven't had to get on the pitch at all, as Cole Palmer didn't even travel by all accounts, is really, really positive. And yeah, let's hope for a good draw in the next round. Home draw would be nice. We haven't had a home draw in the cups at all yet this year. And the FA Cup, we've got so much history with it. We haven't won it since 2018 under Antonio Conte's last ever game as Chelsea manager. That feels like, it is a long time ago. It feels like even longer ago, doesn't it? Wouldn't it be special to try and do something this year in the Cup? Here's hoping.
Starting a business can seem like a daunting task, unless you have a partner like Shopify. They have the tools you need to start and grow your business. From designing a website to marketing to selling and beyond, Shopify can help with everything you need. There's a reason millions of companies like Mattel, Heinz, and Allbirds continue to trust and use them. With Shopify on your side, turn your big business idea into... Sign up for your $1 per month trial at shopify.com/special offer.
Celebrate Lunar New Year parties with help from Whole Foods Market. Find yellow sale signs on Asian-inspired ingredients like whole fish, stir-fry ready shrimp, and organic ground pork that's great in dumplings. Explore fresh veggies like napu cabbage, bok choy, and komatsu na. And check out the floral department for money trees, orchids, and more. Perfect for gifting. Find good fortune and flavors through the 24th at Whole Foods Market.
I couldn't agree more, Chris, really, on the Pedro Neto stance there. I can understand why he frustrates fans at times. I think when I look at him, I go, you've got raw pace, you've got a good eye for goal, you can play off both feet, you can cross a good pass, you can shoot very well. But there are moments in games, there are moments where I just think sometimes he's got his boots on the wrong way round. I think we all know, I think most people, most good football knowledgeable people know that he's got excellent ability. I think sometimes he doesn't always bring it. But I must say, he's not somebody that I ever really worry about. I've said a couple of times over the last maybe 4 to 6 weeks that I think he needs bringing out of the team. That's not me suggesting that he needs to be binned. I don't mean that. I think sometimes you just need a little rest and a reset. It's more the reset than anything else. If you get yourself into a bad headspace, it's very, very hard to get yourself out of it without being taken out of the side. And I think that we've managed him pretty well. And if you're going to give him the option of playing Garnacho or Neto at the moment, I think there's only one winner there. What I should have said on my voice note on the whole game was that I thought that Garnacho was quite disappointing. I don't know if I said that or not, or I didn't really go into much detail. I think that he was the one player on the evening that I was a little bit saddened about, because he hasn't had a very good few weeks really, other than the 2 goals he got against Arsenal in that first leg in the League Cup. He hasn't done a lot. His crossing has been poor. His ball carrying has been poor. A few people, Chris was one of them, I've seen other people say it as well, that the match-going fans as well have said that you can visibly see Enzo looking at him and going, no, I'm going to go somewhere else and play the pass to somebody different, which is not a great sign for a winger. I didn't think he covered himself in glory against Hull. I don't want to bash Garnacho too much, because I think he actually is struggling with form. What I thought was weird was the Hull fans booing him immediately. Now, Chris picked up on this quite early on, and it didn't seem to be matter who we played against, whether they were from London, whether they were from the north or the northeast. He was getting booed every ground he went to, and I thought to myself, is it the hair? I mean, Chris jokingly said the other day, the hair doesn't help him. If he just shaved it all off, would people care as much? I don't know. But he does seem to have this booey kind of reputation, and at the moment, he's not quite clearing the fog in his own brain, and I don't think that he's really managing to put any doubters back in their box, if you know what I mean. He's sort of playing into everybody's hands. There'll be Man United fans saying, oh, we knew what he was. You know, he has good moments in matches, but his consistency level is poor, and all those types of things. And at the moment, I'd like him to prove some doubters wrong, but he's not really doing that, which is a shame. But I think there's a player in Garnacho. I'm not as convinced as somebody like Esteval, because I don't think Esteval actually had a brilliant game. I think he missed that great opportunity in the first half, like I said, when he should have just tucked it away. But the movement was fantastic to get there in the first place. Obviously, he does score a goal in the second half, and he takes that very well. But I think Esteval's performances generally across the board have been a little bit underwhelming. And I think we get a little bit caught up sometimes in young players, and they score a good goal like he did against Barcelona. But I don't think his level, say, has been quite the same since that match. He's had much better spells in games in Garnacho, but I think he has been a little bit unsure of himself. A couple of defenders have had his number, not because they're better players than him, but because he's a young man learning the game, and obviously he's coming into a league that is very physical. Esteval's going to be world class. There's absolutely no doubt that in my mind. I don't think Garnacho is in that category, but I think we should sometimes caveat with the fact that I don't think that everybody in the team has been as good as maybe some people have said they've been. But he's got to veer away from the game now and sort of go on to Lee and Rosenior. We have a run of games coming up. Burnley is also our next game at home. We then play Arsenal away, Aston Villa away, Newcastle at home, Everton away, Manchester City at home, and then Manchester United at home. So quite a lot of home games in there. Obviously starting with Burnley this weekend. I think we all expect Chelsea to beat Burnley. Now, we've said that a few times this year under Enzo Maresca. We expect Chelsea to beat certain teams, and it hasn't quite played out the way we would have liked. Chris mentioned in his voice note last week that he kind of is expecting a Lee and Rosenior Chelsea to pick up these points against the slightly weaker sides, and I do intend to agree with him. I know Leeds was a slight blip, but I think that was just purely a couple of mental moments in matches, and I think that sometimes you're going to get these glitches where even under a new manager, mistakes are going to happen. But at least under Rosenior, I feel as though they will be rectified. And even though Chelsea haven't exactly covered themselves in glory in terms of keeping clean sheets, there does seem to be a slight difference in approach to the way we are defending, in my opinion. Even though sometimes we are leaking goals, I thought, for example, Chelsea defended, for the most part, very well against Leeds United, apart from about 6 minutes. Under Enzo Maresca, I don't think we had periods of control like that in matches at all, really, if I'm being honest. And what Enzo Maresca classes as control is keeping the ball at the back and passing it around and not going anywhere. That wasn't really what I was hoping for from my team. I feel like Rosenior has definitely got a little bit of swagger when it comes to these games. I fully expect Chelsea to beat Burnley. I'm not going to predict a score, but I do fully expect us to win that one. But where I think my mentality has slightly shifted, and I can't guarantee wins or draws or whatever, but I do feel as though Liam Rosenior is going to come into the Arsenal game, the Villa game, with a plan and a very measured approach in how we are going to attack the game. I didn't get that feeling with Maresca. I felt as though he basically had a system and he played one way, and he pretty much played one way and one way only. And that arrogance of, well, I will beat you the way that I want to beat you, if that makes sense. And it never paid off. I would suggest that most games we went into, we weren't great, particularly away from home. And I don't get that sense of dread. I'm going into the Newcastle game at home full of expectation. I'm going into the Everton game with good expectations, and the Man City and Man United games with good expectations. I don't feel too concerned because having played Arsenal back-to-back in the League Cup, I felt as though we had a very good level of control in that away leg. At home, okay, a bit sloppy, but I think Rosenior hadn't played a team of that ilk up until that point, and was maybe a little bit surprised by how strong Arsenal went in the first game and how hard they went at Chelsea, which they did. They were very, very good. But other than that, I think we've been excellent, quite frankly. There's been some disappointing moments in games where we haven't quite been at our very, very best in terms of scintillating football. But I think for the most part, it's been very, very well structured, and there does seem to be a game plan. And I think the biggest, I suppose, tip my hat moment to Liam Rosenior would be the fact that I don't feel scared to play Man City. I don't feel scared to play Man United. And I think a few weeks ago under Enzo Maresca, I would have been looking at these games if he was still in charge, particularly because I've said before, I don't think that the games we played previously, up until this point, we would have got the same level of points as Liam Rosenior has. I'm now looking at this and going, I think we can do something here. I'm not concerned with the way Newcastle are playing. I think Eddie Howe has not been brilliant this year. I think he's had some poor moments. Newcastle don't look like they're tearing up any trees, but as we know, when they play Chelsea, they always seem to play well. The same goes for Man United. I don't think Man United are a particularly good side. They are above us at the moment in the league table, but they are playing half the amount of games than we are. So there is a level of help in that regard, in my opinion. It doesn't mean to say that Man United don't deserve to be where they are. If you've garnered that many points, then you deserve to be where you are, and that's fine. But I don't think Man United are a very good side. That's my personal opinion. I think we are a far greater team than them. But again, we just seem to have a bit of a mental block, and I'm hoping over the next few weeks, and if we can beat Burnley quite handsomely, and maybe we go to Arsenal and potentially get a result, because I think we were only a hair's breadth away from getting a result against Arsenal. And I'll be honest with you, if Chelsea go to Arsenal and play like they did against them in the League Cup second leg, I wouldn't be disappointed. If we go there and nick a point at Arsenal and actually play with a fair level of control, and if Arsenal are just relying on set pieces and corners to try and score a goal against us, I think we'll be okay. And in games like that, you just never know. Arsenal are wobbling is maybe a little unfair, but I think they are definitely feeling the pressure of certain games. And if Chelsea can pick up something against them, it's going to put more and more pressure on them to kind of deliver their first league title in a long, long time. And then we go to Aston Villa, and I don't think Villa are playing that well. I think a lot of teams are suddenly finding them easy to play against. And Chris mentioned, and rightly so, they're going to have the Europa League to deal with again very, very soon. And I think that is a good way of getting into the Champions League, as Spurs found out last year. So I think that Villa doesn't really scare me too much. And I think as long as Chelsea aren't losing these next two games, we go into Newcastle with a fair amount of confidence. You know, if we were to get a point against Arsenal and maybe a point or a victory against Villa, I think that's okay. I think that's decent enough. We want to win them, I know, but it's not always easy as that. And then you have Everton. We've never had a great record at Goodison Park. It's a new ground, new stadium. Who knows what's going to happen there? Really don't know. They're playing sort of fairly average football, I would suggest. 1 week they're quite good, 1 week they're not. Depends what you're going to get out of Everton. And then you come into the two Manchester games back to back. And again, the Man City home game, they are a bit hit and miss at the moment. And United, same again. You just don't know what you're going to get. They're on quite a good run of form, but I don't think they're playing amazing football. I think Carrick's bubble will burst eventually. And I don't know if they'll employ a new manager before the time we play them, or whether they'll stick with Carrick until the end of the season. Who knows? But I don't know. I just don't feel as stressed about it. I think my concerns were I couldn't see it changing under Enzo Maresca at all. I couldn't see our style of football playing. And I was crying out for Chelsea to not be a reactive team. Don't start with the same team and same formation week in, week out and hoping to get a different result against the same teams every week. It's just not going to happen. We needed to have some kind of manager who would come in and be prepared to go, do you know what? We're going to go back 3 today. We're going to go back 4 today. We're going to play 2 up top today. We're not going to bring off a striker and bring on a striker. We're going to take off a midfield player and put another striker on. And that in itself has given me confidence within this manager and this team that we might be able to, at the very least, finish in the top 4 and potentially go and maybe win a trophy. The European Cup is always going to be a difficult trophy to win. And there are definitely better teams out there than us at the moment on paper who have got the kind of potential to win it. But Chelsea have been there before and you never know. And the FA Cup is a trophy that we've had great success with, but like Chris said, we haven't won it for quite a while. And wouldn't it be nice to go to Wembley and potentially pick up a trophy there? I think Chelsea have the potential to win a trophy this season. It's still on the cards, I would suggest, more with the FA Cup than the Champions League, but who's to say? that we couldn't spring some kind of mental surprise, but I don't expect it, so don't get excited. And I think that all Chelsea can really hope for now is they've had too many drop points. Again, I think we are up there as either number 1 or number 2 in terms of points dropped from winning positions this season. So we know we've had games in the palm of our hands and we've sort of snatched defeat from the jaws of victory on quite a few occasions. So I think we realise as a fan base that we've gifted points away. So winning the league or finishing second, for example, is obviously out of the question. But we must make sure that in these next games that are coming up, that we don't gift away too many cheap results. I think that if we can keep 2 fairly sound results against Arsenal and Villa, I'd be very happy. We have to beat Burnley. That's a given. That's an absolute given. And then the Newcastle and Everton games, I think on paper, we have the potential to beat Newcastle at home quite easily, quite frankly. And I think that Everton, being that it's not a Goodison Park, I think I would expect us to go there and get something. And then the 2 Manchester games at home, you just never know. They're going to be difficult games. But like I say, I'm not too scared about them. So I think that just shows you that what Liam Rosenior has done to me, I'm not expecting miracles. And if he does lose to Newcastle or he loses to Man City, for example, I'm not going to be screaming from the rooftops. What I do hope is that we don't go into these games and lose 4 of them, because I think that would be a bit of a disaster, quite frankly. I think we must make sure if we're not going to win them, we're definitely not losing them. Make sure that you're not letting Aston Villa get away from you, for example. We can't afford to give them any more points than they've already got, quite frankly. We need to make sure we're reeling them in and not letting them get further out. So, yeah, I think it's just nice to see that a manager has come in, he's had some good, fresh ideas. I'm not really interested in what the media have got to say about him or what BBC or Sky Sports say about him. I really couldn't care less. I've got my own eyes. I've got my own opinions on what I see. And I think that he's a manager that has definitely got those boys playing. They want to play for him. I have it on good authority that Cole Palmer is very excited and loves working with Liam Rosenior. That I can tell you for a fact. When you've got your talisman, or maybe a little bit injured currently, or maybe not 100%, when you've got him on board, and you can see from his performances, I think, that he's definitely got his mojo back under Liam Rosenior, that it can only be a good thing. Yeah, I'm going to these next few matches, I think, with an air of optimism. Like I say, I'm not going to be screaming from the rooftops if we don't win 1 or 2. It's just the way it goes. But I would like to see us, at the very least, stay in these games, at the very least compete in these games. And for God's sake, if you do go a goal down, let's not just rinse and repeat, put on like-for-like substitutions and go nowhere. So I think that at least under this manager, we've got a real fighting chance. And whatever happens until now, until the end of the season, I think it's not Liam Rosenior's fault. The position we're in was due to Enzo Maresca to start with. If we don't make the top 4 or 5, I think we can't blame Liam Rosenior for that. But I think that, if I'm being truthful, I think that he has given those players a little bit of belief back. I think he's given them excitement back. I think we've got players like João Pedro bang on top of his game. And I think there's 1 or 2 other players like André Santos. I think Enzo Fernandez is playing really, really well. We've mentioned Neto earlier on. I think there's enough players in the squad and in the team that have suddenly found a bit of belief from somewhere. And yeah, I think that we should, all being well, when injury-wise we stay fairly free from that, I think we'll be okay.
Well said, Joe. Yeah, it's a big run of games ahead, and it's a run of games that we are going to have to do without Mark Cucurella, by all accounts, because news coming out today that he is out probably for 3 to 4 weeks minimum with his hamstring injury. So that man, Gerald Hato, who you rightly called out earlier as someone who thinks got a massive future at the club, is very likely going to have a big, big part to play, isn't he, in the next few games. And I think we were talking about it off pod, but again, already you see that because Rosenior has shown more faith in him, we feel a little bit more confidence in him and less worried about that. Whereas, let's face it, I think a couple of months ago, with Enzo Maresca still in charge, we'd probably be facing the prospect of Malo Gusto playing at left back. So, yeah, hopefully Gerald Hato, it's a massive opportunity for him to step up and stake a claim, show what he can do. he's only 19 years old. You sort of forget that, really. So when he's had a couple of moments this season where he's looked a bit raw, and to be honest, it has only been a couple of games where he's really struggled. I'd say probably Karabag away and home to West Ham, I think, are the two that probably stand out. But I mean, West Ham, he was hung out to dry a little bit. It was West Ham, wasn't it? I think. But other than that, he's looked pretty good, and hopefully he can step up. But it's a big moment for him. I just wanted to pick up on a couple of other things that we haven't mentioned. I didn't mention Mamadou Sarr, but his first full debut, as you say, was pretty flawless against let's face it, a lesser opposition. But what really stood out for me about him was, number one, the size of the guy. He's a massive, isn't he? He's a giant. I think he's not far off 6'3", 6'4", and that stood out. And his passing, he hit over 100 passes, but most of the centre backs are doing that these days. But it was the progressive passing. He was looking to really punch balls into midfield at times, and it was his ball actually, was that worldy through ball for Esteval that Esteval should have scored. But I like the look of him, and what's interesting, he played on the left side of obviously the central defenders, which is an area since Colwell's been out that has been a little bit difficult for us this year. So yeah, it'd be interesting to see how much he comes straight into the mix of those centre backs. You'd imagine that he'll get used quite a bit, because you would have thought it'd be Liam Rosenior himself who's asked for him to be brought back, and obviously knows him very well. And I think from what he would have seen there, I think he's been quite slow to gently sort of ease his way back in, but you'd think he'd have a decent part to play end of the season as we go. And yeah, one thing I wanted to mention was that we've talked about, say, Liam Delap having, a big end to the season for his Chelsea career, and I think that is true, and I don't think he's alone. I was looking at it and thinking there's quite a few players in this squad that have got a massive 3 months ahead to sort of determine what Chelsea will think about doing with them in the summer. Ironically, I think Jamie Gittins is and was one of them. In fact, he might not play again this season, depending on how bad his injury is. I don't know if that's good or bad for him, but they'll certainly be looking in the wide areas. All the talk on transfers this last week or so has been that Chelsea are going to look at strengthening in effectively all areas of the pitch in the summer. But we hear that a lot. But you'd have thought it's a big few months really for quite a number of players. Rob Sanchez, you'd think, alongside Mike Penders, would be the 1 and 2 next season, whatever order that is. I think he's done enough this year to go. You probably start next season with him as number 1 and bring Penders in. So I think the goalkeeper area probably isn't a priority. I think if you look at centre-back, we've all been crying out for Chelsea to bring in a centre-back, and probably we still will be. But I'm going to look at the guys that are in there and go, well, it's a massive few months for Mamadou Sarr and Josh Achimpong, for example. I think with Chalobah and Fofana, we know what we're getting really with those guys when they're fit. Achimpong and Mamadou Sarr, we don't quite know the ceiling with those guys yet. Do they do enough in the next 3 months to convince Chelsea that they don't need to strengthen with Colwell coming back as well? That'll be huge for them. I think at the moment you're thinking, yeah, Chelsea need to go in the market in the summer, but again, for those guys in there, it's massive. Fullbacks, you'd think we're fairly well set, although, again, we'll talk about this in the future. I think there's a few, me and Joe would probably take an offer on Malo Gusto, to be honest, but one for another day. And then in central midfield, I wanted to mention this because Chelsea, again, this morning being linked with Elliot Anderson at Forest. See, if Forest are talking about 100 million, but if they go down, that price comes down. Massive player for England going into the World Cup, of course. He's being linked to not just Chelsea, but Man City, United and others. We've also been linked to Wharton at Palace, which would probably be my preference, actually, if we did go for a centre midfielder out of those two. Mainly because I know so many Palace fans who think he's just unreal. But I look at in that midfield area, and people are going to laugh when I say his name in a second, but there's one man who's got a massive 3 months, and it is Romeo Lavia. Because at the moment, he's a joke figure. He's never played 90 minutes for Chelsea. And you kind of in your head sort of think he'll never play again. But the fact is, he's back on the training pitch. Can he, in the next 3 months, play some regular football, be a big part of what could be, as Joe's just said, a big end to the season for Chelsea, still fighting on 3 fronts? If he can, and he can get back to the player that we have seen when he is on the pitch, he always looks good, then there's no way I want Chelsea to go and spend 100 million on Elliot Anderson, Wharton, whoever. I don't think you need to. But at the moment, people are going to laugh because, well, of course you do, because he never plays. He's never fit. So it's a huge 2 months for him. I mean, what do you do with him if he doesn't stay fit in the summer? You almost can't sell him because you'll get no money. So the only thing you'd be doing is trying to loan him and maybe try and get him to play some regular football, and then either his value up or does enough on loan to then bring him back in the fold and say, can you play for us now, please? But I look at the way we play and the way that Santos is playing and Caicedo and think, if you could add a proper fit Lavia into the mix, you've just got a perfect group of centre midfielders there, really. But again, people are going to be listening to this and think, come on, Chris, he's not played a game virtually all year. But we'll see. And obviously, add into that Asugo, by the way, who's another centre midfielder, who's meant to be the Caicedo light, who, again, I can't even comment on because we've hardly seen him in a blue shirt at all. So, yeah, again, very interesting area. And then the wingers, Chelsea will do something in the winger area, whether that is just bringing in Quenda, who's the young guy, obviously at Sporting, very highly rated, or whether they spend big. We like buying wingers, let's face it. It's our favourite position for the sporting directors to buy. So I wouldn't be too surprised if there's some sort of rotation in that area. And then the one I was thinking about with the strikers, obviously we talked about Delap quite a bit, the baked potato, is, I don't know why I was thinking about it, but again, people are going to laugh. But by all accounts, one of the reasons that Nicholas Jackson left was Enzo Maresca, and the fact that, not that they'd had a massive fallout, but it was clear that he was no longer in favour under Maresca. And you just think, I mean, I would have loved to have seen him come back. When Delap got injured early in the season and Chelsea tried to recall him from loan, I was really pleased. It felt like a really sensible call. That didn't happen. It was a nightmare, obviously, stupid 24, 48 hours, and he stayed at Bayern, etc. But I look at him and go, I don't think he's the number one at Chelsea. I think we've seen enough of him to know that you can't rely on him to be the man. But alongside in a rotation with João Pedro and potentially Omega, who's obviously the big guy, is going to come in from Strasbourg, again, another one that Liam Rosenior knows very well. A group of 3 like that, and I don't know, is it enough? Again, would love to know what people think. Is it enough, or do you still need, go and get a Julian Alvarez, who we've been linked to, go and get another big name? I don't know. I think the funny thing with Jackson is you're never better than when you're injured or away from the club, are you? And you kind of remember all the good stuff. And maybe I'm forgetting the many, many bad bits with Jackson. But I think looking at what Delap has given us this year so far, and not to pick on Delap too much because he's had injuries and he's settling into a new club, but you're pretty confident to say that Jackson would have given us more. But we'll see. We'll see. There's a lot of time for the season to go. But the reason I wanted to mention it, not so much planning what do we do in the summer, but more who are the players that have a big 3 months left of this season. And yeah, Delap clearly, as we've mentioned, Garnacho, and if Gittins was fit, I'd say Gittins, massive few months for them to make sure that Chelsea don't look at them in the summer. The centre midfielders that we've talked about and centre backs. I think there's a few players there that are not setting this all out for their Chelsea careers necessarily, but certainly making sure that Chelsea don't sort of sniff around too much and think, you know what, these are areas that we need to strengthen in. So it will be interesting. I'll finish this week with a really weird thing to say, but it's about Liam Rosenior. And I said that one of the things before he joined, I said, I think I'm going to like him. I think I'm going to be able to relate to him. And one thing he said in his post-match conference, because obviously he knows Hull very well, having played and managed there, and he said he got a great reception from their fans, actually, I think, on the night. But he said after the game, they said, what are you doing now? Are you going to go and see some people? He was like, well, I'm going to go and have a little beer with the opposition manager in his office. He's invited me for a beer, and I'm going to do that before we head home. And I thought, isn't that a nice old school thing that you very rarely see and hear managers doing these days? I know that Ferguson was famous for doing it. I think Mourinho bought him a lovely bottle of wine from Portugal, and it used to be a bit more of a thing. And I kind of like that Liam Rosenior is part of that, bringing that back to Chelsea and a little bit of that managerial community. And yeah, fair play to him. We'll be back. I might go and crack a beer open now, actually. And we'll be back on Thursday to preview the game of the weekend against Burnley. Must-win game. Until then, keep it Chelsea, and remember, every little thing's going to be all right. Those were the Chelsea notes for this week. If you enjoyed the podcast, do us a favour and share it with a fellow Blue. And we'd love to hear your thoughts, so leave us a review wherever you're listening. Wherever you may be, stay carefree, and remember, every little thing's going to be all right.